Thanks for checking out this online resource. We here at Calvary Community Church hope it's a help to you in your own spiritual journey. But online resources can't replace our engagement with the local church, where we can serve with others, we can worship with others, we can do life together and reach out to the community. If you live near Calvary, we invite you to join us 6 p.m. Saturday or 9 or 11 Sunday morning for one of our weekend services. If you live at a distance, just email us at info@calvarycc.org and we'll help you find a church where you can get grounded and growing in Christ.
You know, often friendships that we have in life start pretty young, not just in middle school or high school, but we develop friendships that begin even when we're really little. It might even be just two little girls talking and in their own little way in a very simple, pure form, just being friends. No baggage, no background to carry in with them. And sometimes it can even be a boy and a girl discovering something as a little child that's fun, like mud, and experiencing that. Then, of course, as they get older, the boys, their friendship may be used to those kind of mud activities, and they share maybe a bond in their friendship that's even deeper. Then there are those in our childhood, those friendships where we're friends with, someone who can't really speak back to us, but they're there for us and encourage us. And like this little guy, just hanging out with that little puppy. Friendships in childhood seem so simple, sweet, pure. And then as you get into those middle school and high school years, things get a little more complicated. Then when you become adults, you get through college, early young adult years, and into the rest of your life, friendships get complicated, don't they? It's difficult to maintain healthy friendships and to be a healthy friend for others. Today we're going to look at the theme of friendship and what the scriptures have to say about the friends, the people we have relationships with in our lives, whether they be at work, whether it be in the neighborhood, somebody we went to school with, whether it's a family member, the friendships we share. We're going to look into the Old Testament book of Proverbs. As a matter of fact, we started this series last summer, and we covered several of the themes in this book that has 31 chapters, but the themes of the various proverbs and wisdom sayings are spread throughout the 31 chapters. We started this last year, and we looked at about half a dozen themes, and we're going to finish out this summer looking at some more themes from this incredible Old Testament book. The wisdom that's gathered here was gathered by King Solomon, the son of David, and the Spirit of God brought some great stuff for us about practical living in the world today in this incredible book. Now, if you weren't with us last year when we began this study last summer, or you were with us but you forget what the book of Proverbs is about, let me encourage you to view the video we showed last summer. It's about an 8-minute video. It's a great overview of the book of Proverbs. And that video was made possible by the Bible Project. And so if you want to find that video, you can just Google Bible Project Proverbs. And that video will pop up, and you can see a great overview of this book. Now, since we're studying Proverbs, I want you to turn in your Bibles or go there on your mobile device to John chapter 15. John chapter 15. Actually, we'll get into John chapter 15 later in the message, because ultimately we'll see that the greatest example of what it means to be a friend is Jesus. And we'll look at some words that Jesus shared with his friends about friendship. But in this study this morning, I want us to understand that genuine friendship goes far deeper than a clique. The best kind of friend loves like Jesus loves. I don't know about you, but it's been interesting on the various social media platforms that I'm a part of, when you get a request for someone to be your friend, and then you confirm that friendship, and it's just a click, and then a few months later, someone makes a comment, and you go, who is that person? How did they become my friend again? We have hundreds of thousands of people that when they make comments, we don't even really know who they are. Well, friendship that God wired us for is something deeper than that. As a matter of fact, God wired us for relationships with other human beings, to live in community. And it's interesting, in this world where we're connected through texting and email and mobile phones and social media platforms, we're so connected. And yet, psychologists tell us that we have an epidemic of loneliness on the planet. Matter of fact, the American Psychological Association has been doing a lot of research over the last 5 years on how we are so connected, and yet there are more people who describe their lives as lonely than ever before. Last year in the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Theresa May appointed a secretary, established a secretary and department of loneliness. to deal with the number of lonely people in Great Britain. So we understand that there's something going on here. We think we click to make a friend, and yet we have a lot of lonely people in the world. I trust that if you're here and you feel lonely today, that as we move through this and you sense what the genuine friend who could be in your life is like, that you'll reach out to us and let us help you find a good Christian friend. Also, I hope that as we explore this, we'll understand the kinds of friends we have and the kind of friend we are to them. As you see there on the take note or the outline that you can get at the digital bulletin, or you can get them on the carts, the Bible carts, and the entrances to the worship center, there are 3 blanks, just 1, 2, 3. Now, whether you have one in front of you or have a pen or not, fill in those blanks. Either physically fill it in or fill it in your mind with the 3 friends that you think of right now. Just the 3 names that come. Just write them down or put those 3 names away in your head. Visualize what you see on the screen and write their name in those 3 blanks. Think of those 3 friends. As we move through this message and we understand what genuine friendship is, where we share with one another the very love of Jesus, I hope you'll be able to step back and the Spirit of God will guide you through an analysis of those friends in your life and the kind of friend you are to them. So I want us to look into the book of Proverbs, and one of the statements that jumps out at you right away as you look at the various statements about friendship in this incredible Old Testament book is a statement found in Proverbs 12:26. The righteous choose their friends carefully. Good people are careful about those who are speaking into their lives and influencing them. You know, we don't get a chance to pick our family. We're stuck with them. But when it comes to friends, we get to choose who they are and who we allow to have an influence over us or on us. Now, you may be asking a question right away when you think of friends. Is it possible for Christians, is it appropriate for us to have friends, people in our lives who are not followers of Christ? And absolutely yes is the answer. And we'll see there can be different levels of influence they have on your life. And if you have people who don't know Christ and they're a bigger influence on you and pointing you away from Jesus than you are in pointing them to Jesus, there's a problem then. But I want us to see 3 kinds of friends that emerge as you understand the Scriptures, specifically through the lens of the Proverbs and through Jesus as the example of a great friend. I want us to see these 3 kinds of friends. The first kind of friend is a good kind of friend, a good friend. Now, this word good is a simple, regular adjective that describes this friendship. A good friend. And I think there are 4 qualities as you read the Proverbs and you find the verses that deal with friendship, 4 qualities that jump out about a good friend. The first quality is compatibility. You enjoy being together. Compatibility. You have similar hobbies. You like to laugh at the same things, and maybe you're interested in the same sports teams or going to the same events, and you enjoy being together. Proverbs 18:24a says, a man who has friends must himself be friendly. There's something about friendship and compatibility. You pour something into those individuals who are your good friends, and they speak into your life. Proverbs 22:24 says, do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered. The point here is, don't hang around people that irritate you. I mean, very few of us have friends that we just say, oh, they just constantly irritate me and bug me, and they're angry, and we don't get along, we have nothing in common, but they're a good friend. There's just something basic about friendship that is compatibility. Then the second quality of a good friend is sincerity. Sincerity. There's something genuine about this relationship and the way they're approaching it and the way you're approaching it. They have no hidden agendas, and you have no hidden agendas. Matter of fact, the Proverbs give us a lot of warning about this, because sometimes people are friends with someone because of the power and the position they have that can advance them. And that's the only reason for the friendship. Or there's a financial thing you get out of it, and that's why you're friends with that individual. Well, the Proverbs warn us about that. Proverbs 19:4 says, wealth attracts many friends, but even the closest friend of the poor person deserts them. Proverbs 19:6 says, many curry favor with a ruler, and everyone is the friend of one who gives gifts. Yeah, everybody likes someone just handing out money and gift cards and prizes, but that's not sincere friendship. Proverbs 14:20 says, the poor are shunned even by their neighbors, but the rich have many friends. The idea, again, is that those friendships aren't genuine and sincere. See, when there is sincerity, you really do care about the other person more than you care about yourself. Now, there was a book written decades ago, and it was also a seminar that went around by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he talked about the sincerity of the relationships we have. He said this: you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming really interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. Right? And so sincerity is one of the qualities of a good friend. There are no hidden agendas. Thirdly, the third quality, not just compatibility and sincerity, but then there's loyalty. They've got your back. You know they're there for you. They're faithful, they're reliable. Proverbs 18:24 says, there are friends who destroy each other, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother. There's a reliance you can have on them. They're there for you. They're not phony friends. They're loyal. Proverbs 25:19 says, putting confidence in an unreliable person in times of trouble is like chewing with a broken tooth or walking on a lame foot. Have you ever had a broken tooth? I had a tooth problem just a couple of months ago, and so it was on this side of my mouth, and I found myself chewing over here. Why? Because this was not going to help me, and it was painful and difficult. And I've had in the past, a herniated disc where it affects one leg, and you get that pain down the leg, and I find myself, when I've got that pain, I kind of lean on the other one because this one's not reliable. That's the picture he's making of a friend who's not reliable. They're not loyal. We want to look for loyal friends, and we want to be loyal friends. And Proverbs 17:17 simply says, a friend loves at all times. Not sometimes, not most times. There's a loyalty. These are the basic qualities of a good friend, and loyalty is one of them. The fourth and final is integrity. Integrity. They want what is best for you. They're not looking to cheat you, to swindle you, to gossip behind your back, to lie to you. There's some integrity there. There's a purity in that relationship. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Hang out with people who've got wisdom. There's integrity in their life. Proverbs 22:11 says, one who loves a pure heart and who speaks with grace will have the king for a friend. If you've got a pure heart and you communicate in a gracious, kind manner, everybody, even the king, even a leader is going to want to be your friend, because it's so rare, especially in our divided world today. Proverbs 16:28 says, a perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends. You see, one of the qualities of a good friend is integrity. So now look at these qualities. You got compatibility, you like being together. Sincerity, no hidden agendas. Loyalty, they've got your back. And then in integrity, they want what is best for you. Now, we have a lot of good friends in our lives. This is the category of friends, this kind of friend. We might have a lot of them because there are just some basic qualities about that kind of friendship. When our family in 1971 moved on to Victory Road in Mishawaka, Indiana, there were only 3 houses on this little dead-end street. And they were all on one side of the road, and there was a field on the other side. We were in the middle as we moved there. I was about 3.5, and my brother was a newborn baby. And on one side, we had an older couple, and they wanted nothing to do with us, and so there were no friends I could make over there. But on the other side of us was a family who had 2 kids. Their daughter was about 4 years older than I was, but they had a son who was just 2 months younger than me, Lance. And Lance and I became really good friends right away at about 3.5 years of age. And we started hanging out and spending time together. And we were close partly because his sister was 4 years older and my brother was almost 4 years younger than us. And so it was just something natural. We would track through school in the years ahead. And so, we had this incredible growing up period in the 1970s, the time when we would literally get on our bikes, and to go do something, if it wasn't in the woods or in the stuff around us there, we had to get on our bikes and ride into town, into either South Bend or Mishawaka. And, we'd say goodbye to our moms in the morning. We were 10 or 11 years old. Say goodbye in the morning, and we'd just try to be back by dark. Now, I've never let my kids do that today. Maybe they shouldn't have back then, but it worked for me. And Lance and I were just always together all summer long, and even after school and on snow days, and we had a good friendship. I remember when Rocky, the movie, came out. Of course, again, there weren't a lot of friends, so we had to come up with things to do. So we decided that he would be Rocky, and I would be Burgess Meredith's character, the trainer, cheering him on. Come on, Rocky. And so we did this for about 10 days, and it kind of got old because we didn't have anybody for him to fight. So I'm cheering him on, and he's training, but there's nothing going on. So we decide what we'll do is make my little brother Troy Apollo, the bad guy. And so we go to the field across the street, and we mow it real short in one area. We put up 4 posts, put some rope around it, made ourselves a ring. We put Troy on the other side, and we put just some winter gloves on and kind of gave Troy sort of a helmet thing we had. And I was over in the corner, cheering on Rocky, and my brother's all alone on the other corner. And then I made the bell sound, and they went out and fought, and that week Troy lost a few teeth. But Lance and I were always doing stuff. Even when I had left the public school in 3rd grade, and we'd been together in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, we had a lot of the same friends, and I went to private school from 3rd grade through 8th grade. And Lance and I maintained our friendship, but I kind of lost friendship with all those kids who went to those schools he was going to. And I came back in 9th grade, and in our school district there in northern Indiana, the schools were set up so that 7th, 8th, and 9th were together in middle school. And I came in 9th grade, so they were already established in the school and everything. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a little bit geeky, and so I was a little concerned about going into 9th grade. And I just remember Lance, he didn't do anything to go out of his way, but if I saw him in the hallway, he would introduce me to his friends, and he just continued that being a good friend. Sincere, loyal, with integrity, and we were, of course, compatible, and I was able to easily move into 9th grade and settle back in and renew some friendships I'd had because of his friendship and his being a good friend. And we've lost touch over the years, and sometimes with a good friend, you're not always communicating or always getting together, but then when you do, it's like right back there. So when I was writing my memoir, All But Normal Life on Victory Road, a couple of years ago, and began to do that process, and I started realizing Lance and I did some great things together, and we did some bad things together, and I needed to talk about some of those, and some of those things, he's the one who made me do them. I let him read a pre-copy of the book and said, is it okay if I put some of this stuff in there? And he said, okay, and we got together, and we've gotten together every year for the last 4 or 5 years, just when I'm in Indiana. And it's strange. It's like we're still friends, and that's a good friend. Do you have those kind of people in your life? Are you that kind of person with some folks? Be careful in our world today. Friendship can get really shallow. You have to be intentional about cultivating this kind of good friend and being this kind of good friend. But now, a good friend is one kind of friend, and we have a lot of those, but the number of friends narrows when we get to the second kind of friend. It's a better kind of friend. This is a comparative term. Good is just a regular adjective, but better means there's something more here. And so a better kind of friend is all the above. You have compatibility, there's sincerity, there's loyalty, there's integrity. But at this level, there are 3 specific roles that a better kind of friend has in your life. And the first role is that of comforter. This person walks graciously with you through times of suffering. When things are difficult, when you're not well, when you're grieving the loss of someone you care about, when you're going through some tough stuff at work or things in your marriage, this person is a comforter. They're beside you. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. This person is there for you when the going gets tough. Someone has said, true friends are not the ones who make your problems disappear. They are the ones who won't disappear when you're facing problems. They're there with you. They're a comforter. The second role a better kind of friend has in your life, is that this kind of person advises you wisely through times of searching. When you're trying to figure things out, when you're in transition at work or making a decision about your career, or you've got to make a decision about the treatments you go through in health, or some decisions you have to make about your children or your family. These are the kind of people that are not only there to comfort you when times are tough and you're suffering, but these are the kind of people who advise you wisely through times of searching and trying to figure things out. Proverbs 27:9 says, the heartfelt counsel of a friend is as sweet as perfume and incense. The heartfelt advice of a friend, the counsel they give us. I had someone years ago say to me, why do the scriptures always say when something's good, it smells good? It's perfume or incense. Because the ancient world really smelled. I mean, before a lot of cleansers and soaps and, showers and all the modern things we have, the ancient world really had a lot of stench about it, and so did the people. And so one of the great compliments you could make about something was that it smelled like perfume. It was pleasant to smell. It stood out amidst all of the other things that brought about stench. And these kind of friends stand out because they give you wise counsel in times of searching. So they're a comforter, they're a counselor, and then thirdly, a better kind of friend is a confronter. These kind of friends, this kind of person addresses you directly in times of straying. When you've strayed off the path of what God has for you, when you've strayed off the path of what is right and good for your relationships, your marriage, your career, your own integrity, when you've stepped off the right path, not following the example of Christ, maybe not living biblically, this person is willing to speak into your life about this. Proverbs 27:6 says, wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. What do you mean by wounds? Well, not gossip and those kinds of things, but someone who says something to you, at first it hurts, but it was well-intended and it was meant to help you. It's better than some enemy who's flattering you and giving you many kisses. Proverbs 28:23 says, in the end, people appreciate honest criticism far more than flattery. So true. See, this person is a confronter. They're willing to, when they see something wrong in your life or an attitude that you've got going or some behaviors or some inappropriate relationships, they will speak into your life. Oscar Wilde said, a true friend will always stab you in the front, not the back. Right? Someone else put it this way, true friends say good things behind your back and bad things to your face. Do you have any of these kind of friends? Maybe you got a lot of good friends, but we need many better friends who are comforters and counselors and even confronters. When I graduated from college and was heading on into seminary, I knew God had called me to pastoral ministry. And in my college years, I had developed a number of good friends, and I had some better friends. One friend that was so close he became the best man in our wedding was a guy named Pat. And Pat and I had had a lot of, philosophical conversations about the world and life, and he knew I was heading into ministry, and that Leslie and I were going to be getting married and I was going to go to grad school seminary and then head toward ministry. And so we were having a conversation. This is the late 1980s, and a lot of major evangelical leaders had fallen and were on the front pages of newspapers. And it was a time when there were a lot of scandals in the Christian world. And we were talking about some of those things and how does that get into a pastor's life. And all of a sudden, he took the conversation in a different direction. He said, let me just tell you something about you. And he said, Shawn Thornton will never really struggle with this in ministry or that in ministry. That won't be your temptation. That won't be either. But this thing will. And then he named something specific. I didn't like that. I didn't like it at all because I didn't agree. And I thought, no. None of those things will be a problem to me, and not that thing you're pointing out. He said, well, because of your background, how you're raised, and all this will be the thing that will damage your ministry and could cause you problems and even a fall in ministry. I said, no. And it really stood out to me. The Holy Spirit has used that over the 25 years of ministry, though, because he was right. When temptation would come in that specific area, he, knowing my background, said it won't be one of these normal headlines. It could be something like this. And the Lord has used his voice for 25 years. And the truth of the scriptures, as the Spirit of God has said, you know what? Remember what a friend told you? Remember what the scriptures say? And that has helped me flee temptation and helped me at those moments. That's a good friend, but that's even a better friend. And we need some of those kind of friends in our lives. Are you that kind of friend, anybody? Is anybody in your life that kind of friend to you? Then there's a third category that really the scriptures speak of, and it's really the example of Christ himself, and that is the category of a best kind of friend. A best kind of friend. Now, often when we say he or she is my best friend, we're talking about the quantity of friends, right? This is the one. This is the close one. This is the one. Our youngest daughter, Megan, who is going to be this fall a sophomore at Seattle University in Washington, I think from the time she could walk and talk, Megan was always talking about her friends, and we'd pick her up after preschool or school, and she'd be saying, can 6 people come home and spend the night? And everything was always friends. She could never do anything without a bunch of friends. Even when she was late in high school, or later years of high school, I remember coming to one of our Saturday night services, and she said, Dad, Mom said I could have 6 or 7 friends over tonight, and she kind of named it me. She said, is that okay with you? I said, sure, I'm going to church, I'll come back, no problem. And I got home, and there were over 30 people in my house. And she would introduce every one of them to me as, this is my best friend, Bob, this is my best friend, Susie, and they were all her best friends. And throughout her life, since she was a little kid till even recent months, I've had these conversations. You can't have that many best friends. But as I studied the Proverbs and looked at the example of Christ, who really fulfills all the wisdom of the Proverbs, I was reminded, wait a minute, maybe there can be more than one. Maybe it's not about the quantity of friends, it's the quality of the friendship. You see, a best kind of friend has all of the above. So there's compatibility, there's sincerity, there's loyalty, there's integrity. They are a comforter, a counselor, and a confronter in your life. Plus, then, there are 3 qualities that are Christ-like qualities that are seen in the best kind of friend. And it's great to have a lot of good friends. Nothing wrong with that. It's great to have better friends. But then we want to cultivate and choose to have those in our lives who are the best kind of friends, that have a Christ-like friendship that marks who they are. The first quality of Christ-like friendship at this level is a godly influence. They point you toward God, not away from him. Think about those 3 people you wrote down, or you thought in your mind as you filled in the blank that was on the screen. Are those friends good friends? Are they better friends? Or are they maybe at this tipping point of being a best kind of friend because they're always pointing you toward God, toward your relationship with him, not away from it? Maybe you're here today and the only kind of friends you have are the kind of friends who point you away from God. Then you might need to make some tough choices this week in your life. Because if they're pointing you away from the things of God, they are lousy friends. They're really not even good friends if they're pointing you away from the things of Christ. Proverbs 22:24 says, do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. If you have people who are pointing you away from God, you will learn their ways, and it's going to hurt you. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. At this best level of friendship, this person is influencing you in a good and godly way. Now, if you're there in John 15, the setting of John chapters 13 through John chapter 17 is the upper room the night before Jesus is crucified. This is where the Last Supper is. This is where Jesus washes the disciples' feet. And Jesus has a conversation, a discussion with them in the upper room. And in the middle of that, if you're there, John 15 and verse 15, Jesus says this, I no longer call you servants because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. He said, look, you were my servants when you didn't get what the mission was. You didn't understand why I came. But now over these 3 years, I've cultivated my relationship with you that we are now friends because I am sharing with you what God the Father has given to me as God the Son. And I want you to learn from what God has given me. You see, he's saying, I have this influence that comes from the Father in your life. And when we've got a godly influence speaking into our lives, they're speaking into our lives with the perspective of the Heavenly Father. When we're that kind of friend and we have that kind of godly influence in someone else's life, we're saying, hey, what the Father has given me, what I've learned in Christ, what the Spirit has taught me, I want you to understand. A godly influence. Maybe you got to choose to step back from some friendships that are pointing you away from Jesus. Maybe you need to be more intentional about pointing your friends toward Jesus. The second Christ-like quality that's a part of this best kind of friend is a humble servant. A humble servant. They do anything for you when you are in need. Jesus said in that upper room discourse a lot about his relationship with them, his friendship with them, as you just saw in John 15. But also in the middle of that, he said in John 13, 14 through 15, now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done to you. He says, look, I am the Lord of Lords and King of Kings, and you're right to refer to me as the person in charge, the master, the Lord. But here in this upper room, there was a basic need that your feet needed to be washed, and I met that need for you. And what you've seen me do, you need to be doing for each other. You need to be doing for other people. You need to be meeting the needs of others when there's no benefit for you. That's a humble servant. They do anything for you when you are in need. Before coming to California, I served as a senior pastor of Bible Center Church in Charleston, West Virginia. And when I arrived, Bible Center had a music minister on staff. He's a couple decades older than me. His name is Jim McQuarrie, and Jim served the whole time I was there, and he served there before me and after me and just retired a couple years ago. But Jim and I became good friends, and we became better friends. He could speak into my life. But I remember the occasion where Jim kind of moved into that best kind of friend category. We had been at the church that evening for some meeting or a service, I don't remember what, but in my office there I had a little bathroom, and he was going around turning out all the lights and going to turn on the alarm to the church building and leave. And he saw my light was on in my office. He came in, but he didn't see me in the office, so he tapped on the bathroom door. And I was in there, but I was down on my knees over the bowl looking in, because all of a sudden a stomach flu had come on me. And here I am getting sick in the toilet, and he's tapping, I'm locking up, you okay? And I said, no, and then he could hear that I wasn't okay. And I said, but you go, I'll just lock up and turn the alarm on, don't worry about me. And he said, well, can I check on you? Mind if I open the door? And I said, no, go right ahead. He opened the door, and he saw that I wasn't doing well, I was sweating, and he went and got a bunch of wet paper towels. He pulled a chair over and sat right there in the doorway, and he stayed there with me for a couple of hours while I was getting sick. And this is when a friend will do anything for you, when you're in a time of need. And he stayed there a couple hours, and then he even drove me the 5 minutes home it took to get home from the church. And he moved into that category in my life as a best kind of friend. Do you have those kind of people? Are you that kind of person who, as Christ was a humble servant, you humbly serve those who are your friends? We need to have those kind of friends. We need to be those kind of friends. The third and final Christ-like quality, it's not just a godly influence, a humble servant's heart, but it's a willing sacrifice. That's a quality that's seen in Jesus that needs to be in our lives. When a friend has this kind of quality that's like Christ, they will take your pain so you don't have to. They will take your pain so you don't have to. That's who Jesus is. Jesus is the friend of sinners, so that while we were still in our sins and guilty, fallen before God, God sent Jesus, and Jesus came. He took on the very pain of living among human beings. He lived a sinless life. He went to the cross of Calvary, and as he was nailed to the cross, all of my punishment, my judgment, your punishment, your judgment, all of my sin and my shame, all of your sin and your shame was placed on Jesus, and he took on the innocent Lamb of God, took upon him the guilt of us all and the pain and the weight of the wrath and judgment of God. He did that because he loves you. He loves me. He took the pain. He became the willing sacrifice, so that now, if we put our faith in the one who died, then he was buried and was raised, put our faith in the one who died, was buried, and rose again for us, not in our good works, not our trying to be good enough, but in Jesus and his willing sacrifice for us, then God makes us his children, And he gives us a home with him forever and washes all of our sin away, forgives us. Because Jesus became a willing sacrifice. I know in my life, I've put my faith and trust in the one who died, was buried, and rose again for me. Have you put your faith in him? If you haven't, today you can do that. Right where you sit, just tell God, I fall short of who you are, but thank you that Jesus became the willing sacrifice for me. Trust him. If I can help you, I'll be in the lobby after the service. Our care and prayer team will be down front. If you want to have a conversation about that, or you want to tell us you prayed and received Christ today, we'll celebrate that with you. Jesus became a willing sacrifice. He said this in John 15, 12 through 13. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. This is the best kind of friend, a willing sacrifice. Does that describe you? You might say, well, what's the big deal about friendships anyway? Well, you got to have a lot of good friends. You need some better friends, and then maybe it gets down to a select few who really are the best kind of friend in your life. Why is it a big deal? Well, about 2 months ago, our good neighbor next door, Oaks Christian School, held their commencement here in our worship center. And one of the speakers got up. I was here, my niece Kylie was graduating, so we were here. And one of the men who was given the opportunity, young men, to speak at the commencement, talked about how important friendship is. And then he said, a wise man named J.D. Lasky. And J.D. grew up here at Calvary and is a part of our high school student ministry. He said this about friendship. And he gave this quote: show me your friends and I will show you your future. I don't know if that was original with J.D., but it's a great thing to share with students in high school, isn't it? And a great reminder for us. That's why the Proverbs give so much wisdom around what it means to be a friend. That's why Christ becomes this example for us. And he even used the word in relationship to his followers, his friends. Is because the people around you right now and how they speak into your life are shaping the direction your life is going. So we need some good friends, we need some better friends, and we need some best friends in our lives. So that as we move forward, we can live and love like Jesus even more. Let me ask you, what kind of friends do you have? Look at those three, right? Good, better, best, and if they're pointing you away from God and Jesus, right, lousy. What kind of friend are you to those people? If you say, oh, I'm pretty lousy, or I'm good, but I need to move up to the next level, make some changes in your life. Think about these qualities of good, better, and best friends. We all know the famous general who finally had the victory in the Civil War here in the United States was Ulysses S. Grant. He became the 18th president of the United States. Also, it's widely known, you remember that he was known for his being inebriated often. He had an issue with sobriety. It went all the way back to his days, a couple decades before the Civil War, when he was at West Point. And he'd served in the military for about 15 years, and he'd been written up a few times because he couldn't even get on his horse because he was that inebriated, drunk. So it'd been an issue, and he'd left the military, went back to his home in Illinois, and when the Civil War came and President Lincoln had gone through a number of generals, General Grant was called back into service, became a general, and to do that, he made an agreement that he could have whoever he wanted as his assistant or adjunct general. So he called on a man named John Rollins that he had met years earlier and he knew from his hometown in Illinois. Now, Grant, as I said, was known for a lack of sobriety. And that was a concern as he led the whole armed forces of the Union troops. And what's interesting is that John Rollins had an opportunity to speak into Ulysses S. Grant's life. As a matter of fact, at the Capitol building in D.C., there's this huge statue as you approach the United States Capitol of Ulysses S. Grant on his horse. He's in the saddle, he's in control, and it honors his legacy. Just a couple of blocks from where that statue is at the U.S. Capitol, there's a little park called John Rollins Park, where there's a statue of that man who served as an assistant, an adjunct general under Grant. And Grant had trusted him so much that when he became president, he made John Rawlins the Secretary of War, the Secretary of Defense. But the stories were told for years of how John Rawlins would never say anything bad about Ulysses S. Grant behind the scenes, or behind his back. But how he was able at specific times when he sensed that Grant wasn't handling alcohol properly, he would confront him personally, and Grant would change his ways. And so it was said after the Civil War that the only reason Grant could remain on that horse was because of his friendship with John Rawlins. Do you have those kind of friends in your life, a John Rawlins? Are you that kind of friend for anybody else? Yeah, we need good friends. We need better friends. But boy, we need the best kind of friends, the Christ-like kind of friends. Genuine friendship is much more than a click on social media. Genuine friendship is a relationship where the love of Jesus flows through us to others. Father, help us to have the kind of friends we need to have in our lives. Whether they know you or not, may there be that kind of compatibility, sincerity, loyalty, and integrity. Then, Father, we pray that we'd have the kind of friends that would be comforters and counselors and confronters. And ultimately, we want to be the kind of friend and have the kind of friends who are like Jesus. I pray for folks now who are wrestling with the people they hang out with in their downtime, what they're doing, and the direction those friends are pointing their lives. May they be able to make some changes if they have to make some changes. Maybe they look at their friendships, maybe there are folks looking at their friendships this morning and they're just saying, I need to take that friendship to the next level. Give them the wisdom. Give them the ability to, through the work of your Holy Spirit in their hearts, to make those decisions, to be the better friend, the best kind of friend for those they're close to. Thank you for the example Jesus is, the one who is the friend of sinners. And thank you for the old song that talks about Jesus is the friend of sinners, to whom we can go with all our grief, all our sins, because he'll be able to bear those things. And that we know we can go to him because he is the friend of sinners. Thank you for Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen.